The group wished to visit Zoar as they had Admah to see if anything remained of the town. They knew that Zoar was one of the 5 cities destroyed by brimstone, but not if anything remained of it. Genesis 19 tells us of how Lot and his family fled to this area to escape the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Simon knew of a place named Safi, also called Zoar, and they elected to try this. They set off for the farthest point of the Dead Sea area, and to their disappointment were confronted by the Jordanian border. Imagine the frustration as they looked at their goal through a border fence, within filming distance, but unapproachable. Even worse, there was said to be a site called Lot's Monastery in the hills above the town. This was another place that Lot visited with his daughters during his flight to the caves. Genesis 19, verse 30. Lot and his 2 daughters left Zoar and settled in the mountains, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. He and his 2 daughters lived in a cave. Staring across the border, they began to realize that even more traveling was on hand. 5 minutes was about to become 6 hours. All were determined to see this piece of biblical history. They now had to travel back, past Sodom, Gomorrah, En-Gedi, and Qumran, to Jericho, Admah, and the border bridge with Jordan on the opposite side of the Dead Sea. They reached the border after a 3-hour drive, only to take another hour to cross it. The party became a little concerned when Simon was told to put the camera away by an armed border guard. Finally, they were across and they hired a taxi and took off on another 3-hour drive to just short of their starting point, but on the other side of the fence. Everyone was quite surprised by the differences between Israel and Jordan. The military were very much in evidence here, and they constantly passed through roadblocks guarded by armored vehicles. The houses were very different from the UK, being mostly box-like and single-story. They stopped for a refreshment at some local shops when Einar, being the daring one of the team, decided to start filming. Suddenly, they were surrounded by children who just stared at them in fascination. Just as they were resuming the journey, the driver suddenly pointed to a rock on the cliffs and informed them that this was Lot's wife. This they didn't believe, as it was too far from Sodom and on the wrong side of the Dead Sea. Excitement grew as they neared their destination, and on the right was the tip of the Dead Sea. They had completed the long circular journey begun 6 hours ago and were now back at its southern tip. Finding a sign indicating that Lot's monastery lay somewhere ahead, they gratefully left the taxi. The remains of a building could be seen halfway up a nearby mountainside, and this was reputed to be the most significant archaeological site in the whole of Jordan. A large meandering staircase was cut into the side of the mountain, and everyone eyed it with some misgivings. There was nothing for it but to climb. And after several rest stops, the mood lightened as they approached the ruins of an ancient monastery. built around the entrance to a cave sometime in the 6th century AD. The cave is set at the far end of the north aisle, and the fine mosaic work is perfectly preserved. To the right is a huge reservoir, which made monastic life possible. The party eventually entered the cave and were amazed to be confronted by masonry and brickwork, which archaeologists have dated to the time of Abraham. Genesis 19, verse 36. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The elder daughter had a son, and she named him Mobe. He is the father of the Moabites today. The younger daughter also had a son, and she named him Ben-Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites of today. It is believed that although this was incest, the daughters truly believed that no one else had been left alive. The views from the monastery toward Safi, now called Zoar, were truly astounding. Lot now becomes something of an enigma, as from this time forward, he is never again mentioned in the scriptures. This latest trip also ends at this place. The facts have now been presented, and you, the jury, are out.